JD Calderon, and this is Indy Comics Explained. And yet again, I brought on this guy.
Well, other side, other way.
There you go.
I'm over here. I'm over here now.
Wait, I know you. Like this way. We brought on Marvin, and tonight we're talking to a retailer. But Marvin, please introduce yourself.
I'm Marvin Wynn, writer of The Edge from out of Comicsburg. And I'm on this side. No, wait, here.
Right.
Here.
See?
Right. Yeah.
There you go. You're right there. There you go. All right.
I'm not sure where I am. All I know is that Alice is in the middle. So
there you go. So Joe, please introduce yourself.
My name is Joe Murray. I'm the owner of Captain Blue Hen Comics in Newark, Delaware. We've been around since 1980, and I've been running the place since about 94 and owning the place since 2001. And we're a 3-time Eisner finalist, and I'm also the president of the board of Comics Bro. So been at this for a while.
All right, very nice. Very nice. All right. So Joe, so your store is in Delaware. How long have you been open?
The store's been open since 1980. So,
gotcha. How long have you had possession of it?
I've had possession of it since 2001, but I've worked here since 93, just before the death of Superman. So,
gotcha. Yeah. Now, if you don't mind me asking, I've been around for a long time. I've been collecting comics since I think I was like 8. And that's from, I started in 78, 77, right? Mm-hmm. So in that time period, I've been collecting the entire time. So from that period that you started, like, what are the big changes you've seen in the industry as far as like, whether it be sales or anything else? Like, what are the big things that you have seen in your marketplace?
In the industry, the thing that I've seen the biggest change was suddenly everything shrinking down to just diamond in the 90s. And then, of course, recently everything exploding away from diamond. And that was all kinds of a seismic shift. I've seen the trend where it's gone from new comics, people buying crazy amounts of new comics. And then, the speculators disappear. And then also I've seen trade paperbacks are big, back issues are flat. Back issues are huge, trade paperbacks are flat. Variant covers come along. Variant covers are sort of the bane of my existence, but they do pay the bills. So I've seen tastes change a little bit, and I've seen the flattening of the sort of marketplace. I think Joe Field had a great graphic at one of the Comics Pro meetings where he did sort of a 2D picture of the 3D version of sales in comic books, and he showed like a metropolitan cityscape where you have buildings of all kinds of different sizes. So you had a whole bunch of titles, some that were huge and some that whatever. And then now it's just like a field of wheat where everything's just sort of flat. There's more of it. There's more titles, but everything is just sort of mid-range. So I've kind of seen that where we're having to do more work to move the same amount of comics. I think that's kind of one of the main things. And also at this point, I'm definitely seeing a different generation starting to get nostalgic for the comics that they had as a kid. I mean, I'm sure you were nostalgic for the shooter era of Marvel, before he lost his mind. But I mean, I got involved in comics because of the licensed tie-in books like ROM, Micronauts, and Shogun Warriors. The ones based on the toys. Those are the ones got me excited. So I kind of started in that era. And now, as much as I was like, oh God, the comics from the 90s, there's now the people that was where they got into it are now at the point where that's all their nostalgia kind of stuff. And you're seeing all the people influenced by the Image people, and you're seeing all the people influenced by manga and everything. So it's been a cool ride, I have to say.
All right, cool. Marvin, you got a question, or you want me to keep going?
Sure. So, I mean, you mentioned that you were the president of Comics Pro. Can you tell the chat or the audience about Comics Pro?
So Comics Pro is an international trade group of about, I don't know, 200 or more brick and mortar comic shops around the world. So at this point, so we get together, we have an annual meeting, which I had a great time. You guys were at the last one, and I had some great conversations with you guys. That was one of my favorite parts. I just wandered into the room, and there you guys were having a meeting, and we had a nice long chat, and I was like, wow, this is cool. So, and so at the moment, we're kind of the nexus of where retailers, publishers, creators, and distributors can all kind of come together into one room, since everything's so fractured instead of it just being a diamond. So we're the ones kind of holding the center a little bit, try to, bring everybody together. Harrimanberg was there, I remember. That's kind of what Comics Pro does. We promote, advocate, connect, and educate comic retailers. That's our mission statement.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Joe, just out of curiosity, like what percentage would you consider your clientele base would buy indie comics?
That has changed over the years.
Mm-hmm.
So back in the late 90s, there was that gap between before Wizard Worlds and all of those kinds of things started, when there used to be, I don't remember if you remember, there was a big show in Philadelphia called Comic Fest, and things like that. There were lots of huge shows, sort of like there are now, and then they disappeared. Everything dried up after the thing burst, and until that stuff started coming back again in the early 2000s, we would put on little independent comic shows here in the late 90s and early 2000s. We called it the Acme Show, the Alternative Comics Mega Event. We didn't pull the kind of numbers that anybody nowadays, you just say Comic-Con of any kind, even if it's basically an Etsy show, and hundreds and hundreds of people will show up. But we had a number of people there, like we had Brian Michael Bendis before he was Brian Michael Bendis, and David Mack, and John Gallagher, who now has a book, volume 5 of his book with Penguin Random House, and Jamar Nicholas, who does Leon, has got to deal with Scholastic, and John Green and Dave Roman and Brian Wood and Franco and Art Baltazar. So all of these people who, after 20 years have become overnight successes, were with us doing stuff, kind of making these connections between each other in the early, in the late 90s and the early 2000s, the tail end of last century, in the late 1900s and the beginning of this century. And so we definitely had a much more willing group of customers to buy indie comics. That has kind of faded a little bit out of, I'm not exactly sure. I think it's part of the customer base gets older, and the worst thing a retailer can hear from one of his customers is, yeah, I'm buying a house, at which point the amount of comics they buy just drops precipitously, or I'm having a kid and they drop precipitously, or I'm getting married and they drop precipitously. So unfortunately, a lot of times that ends up meaning that the indie comics sort of sometimes end up being the first ones to go, because they want their comfort food more so, and they go for that. And if they're coming in for a regularly weekly fix, one of the downsides sometimes of the indie comics world is consistency and regular shipping. And one of the rarest things in one of the rarest things that you will find a lot of times in the indie comics biz is an issue number 3, and a lot of times after being burnt enough on not being their second issue or something, they want something sort of consistent. And there's a bit more of a wait for the trade, sort of waiting for that, which, given the uphill battle that indie comics have as far as breaking into the market, not having known IPs and things like that is completely understandable. But fortunately, as you were saying before we started, that you've done, 40 Kickstarters, there's now mechanisms for you to be able to get the money up front. So you're not having to spend all your life doing all of this stuff for free and then hope then that you might be able to get the money down the line. You're kind of being able to keep it as a sort of rotating cycle, which I think is very exciting and allows people who are underserved possibly by comic shops to find the indie projects that they're kind of looking for. So it's a lot like the film industry where everybody will go and see a Hollywood movie, but you really, really got to go seek out that sort of that whole underneath the tip of the iceberg indie film kind of festival thing that's going at the film festivals and stuff. So I admire that you guys have adapted to changing things and not necessarily being dependent upon, the comic retailer infrastructure on that. So there's some good support there when you can get it, but so the actual percentages I don't know to actually answer the question. Again, it depends on the project, it depends upon the hand selling, it depends upon the enthusiasm of the creator. So local creators will move a whole bunch of copies of something because they're sort of the extended family and part of the community. Beyond that, it becomes a little bit harder to try to sell them. So,
well, sounds like we need to make a trip up to your shop and have a day.
Absolutely, anytime you want to. That's when we get the phone call from. So first, I want to say everything that Ben C. Schwartz said in your previous one of these about calling on Thursdays and all of that stuff. Absolutely correct. He was spot on. I agreed with absolutely everything he said. To garner more engagement with customers versus just doing the bare minimum to keep to garner more engagement. Well, I will think about that in a moment. So when somebody contacts us about a book, which I know Heroin Berg did contact us. It said, we'll send you the sample, we'll send you some stuff. I'm automatically going to give that more thought than just it lying passively in a copy of previews. Previews is it's the phone book of the digital age. Not to say that sometimes you don't just prefer not to say that I sometimes don't wish I just had a phone book, and sometimes that's easier than the internet. Just like sometimes you wish you had a book of maps instead of having to try to use Waze or Google Maps to find an alternate route. But once they sort of make that contact, unfortunately, most of the time I have to say I don't think that that's necessarily going to sell because of price points or because we're not going to be able to give it the bandwidth it necessarily needs. And more often than not, retailers are also going, okay, is there going to be a second issue? I don't want to put this much effort into a second issue, if there's not going to be a second issue or not some follow-up, not something sustainable. So I don't remember where I started on all of that, but so what we will usually tell them is we welcome the best salesperson for any indie project is the people who make it. Right. You're seeing that a lot now in the retail thing because so many more creators, even on big 2 titles or big 5 titles and everything, doing Zoom meetings with the retailers and doing the publicity and stuff themselves to reach out, because we sort of need to be convinced of the passion behind the project and the sustainability and the elevator pitches and everything for that and the tools. So it's not just indie creators who are trying to do this. It's a kind of a completely different market because there is so much noise and everything has been so decentralized. As a comic retailer, we used to have a couple places we can advertise, but print is dead, Cable TV is sort of dead. Over broadcast TV is dead. Every social media is self-destructing in some way or another. So there's very few shared pop culture moments where everybody's going to be together, everybody's be watching the same thing at the same time for you to get the message out there. So when somebody calls us, our thing is, you're going to be the best person to sell for this. You are welcome to come and set up at the store and get people interested in it. If we're going to have a store event, you're welcome to come in to be an add-on to it. So that way you can sort of, pitch the product and hand sell it and everything. And you're going to be more successful at that than if you just send the book to us and have us try to sell it.
So, I mean, you did mention that like there's no events where everyone's watching. There is, but it's going to cost you like $2 million to advertise at it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Every February, there's an event where everyone's watching. So
right.
You get $2 million together.
But they're watching it, but they're not necessarily watching it in the way you want them to. You want to get multiple impressions, right? I mean, that's the whole point of the thing. But everybody's just watching it, not necessarily for whatever the product is. They're watching to see this tiny little mini movie, and there better darn sight be a joke at the end of it. You know what I mean? Which is part of the problem of the whole social media era. Is I can't just advertise on social media. That gets squished down, and I have to be creating content. All of us have to sort of be clowns on the internet in order to get people to watch, and we can't talk about the product. So it's fantastic if I get 10,000 views in Kalamazoo, that doesn't translate to any money in the store.
Right.
You know what I mean? But 10,000 viewers in Kalamazoo might mean a dozen more people get to see it in Newark, Delaware. And so that's an awful lot of effort on it. But yeah, I would say that the Deadpool movie, the most recent Deadpool movie, I think was a cultural thing where everybody was there at the same time. I have a whole lot of thoughts about that being the sort of next way that it's almost like it was an interactive movie because they had done so much stuff and giving you so many little seeds, but not necessarily telling you everything. Right. That everybody went to it, watching it like a puzzle to try to say, oh, I figured that out, or I didn't know this was coming or whatever. So it was like very interactive prior to it with surprisingly few spoilers. And so I think that was the closest we've had recently to some kind of like a shared pop culture event.
Did you have a question, JD? I wanted to add on to what he just said.
Well, I was about to, I don't know, you might be adding on the same thing I'm going to add on, but like, did you find that movie actually helped your business in any way?
A little bit. We did move a little bit more Deadpool, Wolverine stuff prior to it. Generally speaking, the Marvel movies anymore don't move things. The movies that move books the best in the past were like when Hellboy was first starting or when Watchmen was coming out. Some of those kinds of things tend to do so more so. So if there's going to be a Thunderbolts movie, we're not going to move that many more Thunderbolts. So.
Gotcha. Well, how about something like The Boys? Did that do anything for you?
The Boys did move a lot of volumes initially. Walking Dead, of course, also moved a whole lot of volumes at the time. But like a mainstream one does not tend to move things too terribly. And a DC movie does not tend to move it much at all. So, I mean, well, that's not true. We do sell a little bit. Once they mention, we may have moved a few more Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrows because that was mentioned or something, but not enough to appreciably move the needle.
So I mean, there could be two parts to that. So do you do anything like in with a partnership with one of the movie theaters to hand out like business cards or directions to your shop or like a coupon that you could hand out at the theater as people are leaving the theater seeing those movies?
We have done those kinds of things in the past. We used to every year, the first week of December, we would do an event over there. We'd show the movie A Christmas Story for free if we brought canned food. So we'd be collecting money for that. And then we'd send them all over here because we had Santa Vader and his Stormtrooper elves here, which is always amazing. And we would do, whenever there was a Marvel premiere, we would sell tickets and do kind of, showings and stuff like that. But post-COVID, that's become a little bit more difficult. And the theater that was here before has sort of become more of a multiplex.
Okay.
And it's a little bit harder to do that because the economics of it for the theaters are kind of different.
Right.
And it's harder to do like at a special showing of something because they're required by their distributors to always have their movie on this particular screen and something, so they can't just slot something else in.
Mm-hmm.
It's, given now in movie theaters that somebody in California can just press a button and your local movie theater will just stop the movie in the middle. They can just yank that movie away from them.
Mm-hmm.
Did I just disappear?
No, you're good.
So it's definitely a more corporate kind of controlled digital thing. So it's been a little bit harder. So we have not had the opportunity to do that much.
Right. What about any like local, like independent theaters, smaller theaters that could probably use that boost?
We're Newark, Delaware, so we don't have a lot of that. But we have worked with them on occasion when we can, but we haven't necessarily seen that bring in as many people as we would like.
Gotcha.
Gotcha. All right. So I'll ask you a generalized question. I always ask this to all the retailers, right? So what advice do you have for any indie creator that wants to reach out to you? Like, what's the best advice for you that you can give them to reach out and make contact with a retailer?
Don't call on Wednesday.
Well, yeah.
It doesn't. I'm okay with you calling me on Wednesday because I have a really good staff and I spend more time hiding in my office than I actually do out front. Although being out front is more fun than being in the office.
Yeah.
But Thursdays are generally better, although I end up having so many Zoom meetings on Thursdays that it's. But I mean, just like basically everything Ben said in your previous one is reach out. You contact, ask sort of the questions you sort of ask, give us the sort of pitch, tell me where to find more information about it. If I say, okay, send me, a link to or a PDF or something of the book. But the main thing you can do to impress me is to have an issue 3, just so for me to know that this is worth getting into, or if you have a full trade or something like that. So
you don't even want to talk to a creator unless they're past issue 3 or at issue 3.
I won't. I mean, I'm okay with talking to you, and I will give it a look because sometimes a lot of things are done in ones. With indie stuff, you do get a little bit more done in one instead of the sort of bloated storylines that you might get from a Marvel or a DC book. Something sort of expanded. So I'm okay to take a look at that, but that's the thing that impresses me the most. Look, this book is coming out regularly, and it's not coming out once every 8 months or something. I want to be able to see that there's some degree of consistency to it, so we can build an audience for it. Because even regardless of how good the quality is, sometimes the sale you're making is just sort of a little bit of charity on your customer saying, okay, fine, you said to read this, I'll throw it in my pile. I don't know if I'm going to get back to it or whatever. And I mean, we have that too. We have our first exclusive cover for a comic, and I think a lot of those have been sold just out of a sense of community as opposed to a sense of interest in the actual product itself.
Cool.
Gotcha. Now, so that opens up an interesting question. So would you rather see, let's say, myself as an indie creator, would you rather me approach a project, let's say as a 4-issue limited series, or just as a single, trade paperback?
I would probably have an easier sell with the trade.
Mm-hmm.
We have taken part in a couple of Kickstarters with that, to get retailer things on it. A couple of books that I like, Love in Caves by Tom Zoller. We've done Blighter by Jeff Parker, and I think Drew Moss and some others. And I think I've done some Jimmy Palmiotti ones, but that's a little bit of an easier sell sometimes because here's the whole thing. You're going to sit down. You're going to get a meal. You're not going to get just a little bit of it. You're just not going to get a little bit of an appetizer that's going to leave you hungry, and the meal's never going to come. So.
Now here's another thing. Do you prefer trades, like just soft covers or hardcovers?
It all depends upon the price point and the product itself.
Mm-hmm.
As a person who supports a bunch of Kickstarters, here's my hot take on them. Sometimes I just want the damn book, but I want to. I have so many prints and pins and patches and posters and postcards and all of this stuff that I just don't know what the hell to do with, because I want this thing, I want the book, and I do kind of want this one little button or whatever like that, and I end up with all this crap in between. And sometimes I think both sides of that equation are doing themselves more work than they need to. If that makes any sense.
Yes. I've done plenty. I'm certainly guilty. I'm a big trading card guy, so I like trading cards. So I always, those are always my.
I have in my collection, I have my comics, and then I have just 3-ring binders of stuff that's okay. This is a random hologram card, and this is a little bit of cards, and this is a little mini comic thing, and this is a pog, and this is a postcard and everything. And I'm like, my kids aren't going to know what the hell to do with that thing, and there's no way I'm ever going to be able to sell that stuff. It meant something to me, but at some point you're just like, what are you going to do with this stuff? Right. So,
Well, pogs are back, so I've seen a lot of people doing pogs now.
Alf is back and in pog form, baby.
Pogs and poker chips.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm doing poker chips in my next one.
That's cool.
That's cool. Marvin, you got another one?
Yeah. So DP and I last week we talked with Shannon and Matt Live from Bat City.
Right. Yeah.
She has that whole entire school program thing.
Right.
Does your store do any kind of like community outreach, like the high schools, the grade schools, the colleges, or anything like that?
Actually, yes. I've done. There was a book that was published for about being a comic retailer that the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund and Dark Horse Comics co-published, where there are a number of articles in it about different aspects of retailing, selling here, doing this, setting up, creating events. And I was the one who did the chapter on selling to schools and libraries. And I've actually spoken at the Delaware and Maryland Librarians Association, annual conference. And every year I present to at least one, if not two, graduate level college classes at the University of Delaware for people getting their masters in library and media studies. And so we do things like that. And in the past we've done many programs where we have a local artist with it, which will actually, now that I think about it, it's easier because now I have a couple of artists on the staff, which will make this a lot easier than it used to be. Because it used to be I have to try to find someone, and you guys are artists, you guys are creators, and you should be getting paid for what you do. And sometimes when you're just saying, man, can you just help me out with this thing or whatever, and I always feel bad about that because we don't always get paid for these programs. But we would go out and we would do how a comic is made, how to put it together. I have a slideshow presentation. This is what a writer does. This is what the inker does. This is what the penciler does. How to tell a story. How to tell a story better. One indie creator we work with is Buzz Hassan and Ken Hazer, who did a book called The Living Corpse, which is now I think with American Mythology. And Buzz is the fastest thing on two legs when it comes to drawing. So he would draw 12 pages during this 45-minute thing talking where we're like, okay, this is the story of this ninja clan, the Coconut Clan, trying to steal something or whatever. This is how to draw it poorly. Everybody's the same size. There's not a lot of movement. Everybody's kind of standing up or whatever. This is how to do it better. All right, this is how to do it best because you've got the Z motion here as you're reading the page, and you could see there's more, your eyes being drawn here. Things are different size. You've got establishing shots. You got, and for him to be able to do this live that fast, and it's great when you do that with kids, because if you have someone up at the board drawing, it's like they're magicians. They cannot take their eyes off. It's totally magic if you have an artist up there doing a talk with you. We have done a number of those things, and they're always so much fun. We've done it from kindergarten through college.
Oh, cool. That's awesome.
Yeah. So when you're buying from an indie creator, what type of discount program are you looking to get when you're buying direct? What are you looking to get from them?
Ideally 50% and free shipping is what the goal is. I mean, that's the sweet spot.
Mm-hmm.
But I also don't understand how the margins could possibly work for you guys if you are going through, say, Diamond or something for that, because when all is said and done, you guys are the ones making the least amount of money off of a comic after it's gone through the regular sort of system, because you've had to pay the printers, and then you have to pay the percentages to the distributor, and you have to have the discount for the retailers. So your piece of the pie is so small. So I'm glad that a lot of you do have the ability to sell direct.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the downside of that for retailers is, aside from money, the one commodity we are in short supply of is time and focus. There's so many things that I want to be ordering that just sit around for a long time because I just can't get around to it. And anything that can be done to make that process easier is muy bueno. So.
Yeah. It sounds like we need like a central place to do these kind of things, like the ICV2 thing that Milton is working on.
Right. That's exactly what I was going to say. Although he's mostly working on game products right now, so I don't know how that's going to work out. But that would be, sort of ideal. Now we have a lot of vendors who there's a company called like Ann McGovery or New World Sales or Fair or different things like that. They don't necessarily sell comics and stuff, but they're one of these places where there's a whole raft of different vendors that you can order from, but each vendor has kind of a different minimum and different requirements. So you're still, it's all going to one place, but you're still having to sort of track, is my order big enough? Is this enough? What my costs and everything are. Yeah. So the ICV2 thing could be great, but it also could still sort of be a little bit of that problem. So there's no silver bullet. But
we had Fair calling me like weekly almost to get our site set up, because I started it and I started putting stuff on there and I never clicked the launch button. So they're like, "Hey, are you going to launch this? Because we really want to get your product in our store." And I'll tell our customer like, "Yeah, I'll get to it. I'm sorry."
Hey, Fair's great. I mean, I haven't used it as much. There's a lot of stuff that I want to get on there, and that's where you're really going to be appealing to the people who are into quirky and outside the regular. We were trying to put together a Fair order, and I had one of my managers looking at it, and I swear to God, he put 30 things on there that had pictures of Danny DeVito on them. I'm like, man, I love you, and this stuff is great. I don't know if this is necessarily what's going to sell, but it's fun.
Well, I guess maybe he was planning on buying one of each.
Possibly, yeah. And Fair's nice because usually the things on there are very modest minimums and whatnot. And so, within Comics Pro, Fair is one of the places that we've been suggesting to a lot of people, hey, give this a look, because ancillary products, stickers are huge right now. We even had a police officer who's went to training with the feds for social media and community outreach and everything like that, and they're like, stickers. They don't want business cards. They don't want this. They want people in their 20s want a sticker they can put on their overpriced water bottle. That's how you're doing sort of the outreach and things. And you can get that kind of stuff on Fair. Right. So, there were a couple of questions that popped up on the StreamYard thing there at the bottom, but I can't see them anymore. So I don't know. Oh, it's under comments. Okay. Is it okay if we revisit some of those?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Don't mind me, I was drawing a blank there for a second. I have a list of questions, and it's always a thing of like, oh, which one do I pick?
Reaching to retailers. Dog Pound asked, what can you more customer engagement with customers than just doing the bare open minimum to keep their shop open? Have fun. Our store model is our mission statement. That so like it's important to have a mission statement so that if you ever like suddenly tomorrow we open up a second store, that you could just whatever staff you said over here, this is the Captain Blue Hen way. And our mission statement is aim for a smile. Everybody who walks that door, whether they buy anything or not, we want to make sure that they have smiled while they're in the store. Fortunately or unfortunately, for those who come into our store, that usually means a lot of bad dad jokes here. I am avuncular bad dad jokes. To give you an example, this is an original one, and people might want to mute it and hit that 15-second ahead button. But why was little toddler Clark Kent the only kid allowed to go to the mall by himself?
I don't know why.
Because he had constant supervision. So anyway, we have our little go-to things, and the stuff that we sell that a lot of times they come in and you've got to acknowledge them, you got to reach out to them, and I would always say something like, "Can I help you find anything?" And everybody's always first response is, "No, I'm good." So my immediate response to that is, "Well, okay, if you find anything, let me know. Otherwise, I'm an overpaid paperweight." And I'm an overpaid paperweight. And I really want to keep this job. So, to kind of break the ice there. And we also engage people with, when you come to check out, or if we happen to get a hold of you at some other time when you're going, we always have a question of the week. It's usually something kind of goofy. This week's question is, because All In shipped this week, is what are you all in on? Okay. A room full of puppies, breakfast for dinner, Scrapple, put your Crocs in the freezer, Red October, which you guys are in Pittsburgh, not Philly, so that's not a real thing. Spoilers, sweatpants, which of those things you're like, yeah, I'm all for this, or catch up on everything, so that gets all kinds of conversation, and you just want to try to find ways to have conversations with people. When people walk in, you make a comment on the whatever t-shirt to start some kind of a question and everything. And so it's all about building relationships, the same as it is with building relationships with schools and libraries. It's all about, making there. And so you want this to be their third space, the place that they feel happy to come to. And you see that a lot of times in reviews or when people are tagging a comic shop or something, not the trolls that are the clowns that Heroinberg mentioned, which there are a lot of those, but the ones who are like, man, I was having an absolute crap day. I went to Captain Blue Hen. I went to my local comic shop or whatever, where, every retailer will say they feel like they're Cheers, where everybody knows your name. And literally more people know your name when you come into a comic shop. I mean, we have people who have every time they walk in, we've established a set routine for them. This guy comes in, we applaud. This person comes in, he is Dr. Mr. Michael Monk, PhD, because we're following all of that stuff. And it's not going to be the experience that you're going to get at Costco or, anywhere else. So, and that builds trust. And then trust allows you to get someone to buy something or to consider something that they might not have considered originally walking in. And so that's why you can do things as a retailer, like give this a try, buy it now. If you don't like it, bring it back. We'll let you trade it for something else. And you almost never get those books brought back to you. Almost never. I mean, there's been titles, there's a little random Image trade paperback. I don't know if you've ever heard of Dynamo 5.
Yes.
I've sold 80 of those. I've probably sold a double-digit percentage of the total print run, because it was just one that I really, really liked, and I sold. And I think, I don't know how many deals of those that I made, said, give it a try if you don't like it. And I thought, I think one person brought it back, and I was like, well, godless commie anyway. So, but it's all about establishing the relationship and having fun and making this a place where it's not necessarily a high pressure sell. It's just, just come in and have some fun.
Right.
So.
All right, cool. I want to ask you, do you sell manga?
We do. Not well, but we sell it.
Okay, well that was part of the question. Is like how does it impact your business, if at all?
Manga is extremely difficult because you either have to be I have not been able to successfully build it up as much as it should be. Right. And part of that reason is periodical comics. There's a sort of loyalty and inertia and routine to that. They're going to come in every week. They're going to come in every 2 weeks or whatever. They're looking for their books. They're picking them up. They're holding. So they know where to get the books. They're set on that. Manga readers are not as store loyal. They just want to read the story. Mm-hmm. They don't care where they get it. They're happy if they get it at the library. If I don't have it, they're happy to go down to Second and Charles or Barnes and Noble or wherever. They just want to get the story. They want to read it. They'll get it offline or whatever, which makes it a little bit harder to comic retailers are still in that sort of subscription model. Mm-hmm. And it makes it a little bit harder with that. And there is so much manga out there. When it first started coming over here, you were getting the best of the stuff. You were getting The Wire, you were, whatever, the things of that level, right? Now you have no idea. Now it could be like Cop Rock level. Any given book, you're like, I don't know. I don't know enough about this in order to be able to do that. And so it's very difficult to stock. So we basically keep in volume 1 and 2s of ones that regularly turn. Because don't sell the stuff in the middle. Right. So it's just very, very hard to kind of order that. And they're also not, they're not as patient. They're like, I can reorder it for you. I'll just get it somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And our manga buyers are somewhat different. They do tend to be somewhat younger, but it is an entry to get them to try some other stuff. Mm-hmm. And it has predominantly been, I wouldn't say it's all women, but I mean, it's definitely a different group than our regular, superhero ones. Okay. As far as okay. I don't have a problem with public speaking. I have a problem with public stopping speaking. So you can just, throw a flag on me at any time. Okay. What was I going to say? Nope. That thought went out of my mind. So, sorry. I'll come back to it a little bit.
So we were, God, was it before the show? You were saying something about alt covers, right? Yes. Do you find, like, obviously you were saying it helps you keep the lights on. Do you find that those same covers, obviously you're getting from Marvel, DC, and Dynamite and all those companies, but do you find they actually help the sales of indie comics?
Not unless there is a big mainstream name doing this kind of thing. So, and I don't even know anymore who necessarily has that kind of pull to sort of bump that thing. But I mean, if there was like a Todd McFarlane cover on an upcoming issue of The Edge, mm-hmm. That variant cover will probably sell. But all right, you get Todd on the phone. So don't expect it to come out anytime soon, because if I'm not mistaken, he still owes a cover for Valeria the She-Bat from the 1990s.
Still waiting for that series.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm still waiting for what was it called? Image United to finish.
Good luck.
But I don't necessarily think so. I know that you were speaking about like maybe having a different cover for the Kickstarter supporters than there are for whatever. And so on Kickstarters and things like that, it kind of makes sense because that is your really core people who, you know, just as I have my community of people here, your community is as rabidly loyal as many of my, you know, are ones. And the goal is to try to get the little Venn diagram to overlap a little bit. So within your community, yes, a variant cover might do something or give you a little bit extra sale. Within my community, I don't think it's going to necessarily move the needle here. So
No, that's fair.
Yeah.
Marvin, you got a question or?
Go ahead. You look like you got one.
So, what is price point, right, on a comic? Like, what is good and what is bad? Like what is an acceptable range for a retailer?
I would say max $4.99 unless it is a very impressive, you know, prestige presentation thing or whatever. A lot of times when we are contacted, they're asking $8 or $10. I completely understand the economics of that for them, but it's unrealistic, you know, comparing to the value you would get for a regular monthly periodical comic.
Right.
If you are doing something thicker like a trade paperback, like a collected thing, I would say 20 to 25 max, but it better not be a little thin one. And it also better not be one where the characters don't talk. So like there's an Ewoks comic coming up, and I'm like, that could have the most beautiful art in the world, but if the Ewoks are just talking Ewokian, that's not value for your money. It's perceived value. When Marvel did those Enough Said books where nobody talked during the whole thing, you have an expectation of how long a comic's going to take you to read. And if it takes you 2 minutes to flip through because there's no dialogue, you are going to feel that you did not get full value for your money, even though as much work or more work was put into it, you know? So, so it's just that you're getting perceived value, that you're getting a full meal out of whatever you're doing. So
gotcha. I think what Stephen R. Bissett's Tyrant, I think, was silent.
Say what?
Stephen R. Bissett's Tyrant. I think was silent. And I think there was a book, a Japanese book, Gone.
Yes.
The little dinosaur guy.
Yes. Always butting his head on things. Yeah, I remember that one.
Right. Yeah,
was that issue of G.I. Joe with Snake Eyes.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
That's slightly different because that kind of work. I mean, those two issues do sell still, but it's because Snake Eyes is so like hot. But I mean, if you're coming in to pick up your books and all of the Marvel books for that month are silent, and and some people can't write those kinds of stories.
Yeah.
You know, and some people can, but you're just like, okay, I read my whole stack. There's, you know, $40 and I'm done in 15 minutes. No, I don't quite feel like I got everything I needed out of it. So making sure that there's the value for, there's like even Brian Michael Bendis, I think there was one issue of Powers, which took place during like the caveman era, which I don't think there was any dialogue at all of what's of. And even Bone with Jeff Smith, when you read it as a collection, it has really good pacing. But when there's an issue that comes out where there's really it's just a chase scene for the whole thing and not a lot happens. And that actually, that's the same thing that happens with all of the Marvel and Star Wars TV series, like Ahsoka and you know, there's just like 6 episodes in the middle that could have been an email because it's just run back to exactly where we were at the start of it. Run back to exactly where we started this, you know. So so as long as you're getting value, as there's perceived value for the money, like, okay, this was time well spent. I enjoyed this, you know, I feel like I got my value of it. The price is a little bit flexible in there, but just at a first blush, if you're going over 20 or 25 for a trade, you know, it better be freaking spectacular. And if you're going over $5 in a comic, it better be very impressive. So, is it an uphill sale? But again, those margins are probably very difficult for you. So I can understand what's going on there.
Depends
So
on your.
your question as for Kickstarters.
Mhm.
So I think one of the things we talked about at the Comics Pro annual meeting was we were talking about local comic shop day as an opportunity for independent comics, more so than Free Comic Book Day. Because I've done a lot of work with Free Comic Book Day. And Free Comic Book Day is your Hollywood tentpole. They want the known IPs kind of stuff, despite the fact that there are 60 offerings. Okay. And the less return on the purchase that I am going to get as a retailer, the higher the cost that comic usually is. So like most like your Marvel ones might be between 25 and 30 cents a piece to us. But the smallest one that I might sell 2 copies of their regular title is going to be, they're going to try to ask like 65 or 75 cents for the comic. Okay, that doesn't work. So for us, Free Comic Book Day tends to be more of a big family thing. So they want Simpsons, SpongeBob, Sonic, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Local Comic Shop Day, as someone said, independent music and indie comics having a lot of similarities. Local Comic Shop Day is trying to be more like Independent Record Store Day, Record Store Day, which is ironic because Record Store Day stole it from Free Comic Book Day. Now Local Comic Shop Day is trying to steal it from Record Store Day, where you want to get the things that you are only going to find at your local comic shop. You can find Wolverine and Deadpool and Superman and Batman at Target, at Barnes & Noble, at Amazon, at Walmart, okay? You are not going to find Oswald Chronicles, Comicsburg, Heroineburg at any of those places, but you could find them at a comic shop. And so comic shops used to be the incubator lab for new things. Like, Walking Dead was big in comic shops before it got on, AMC. Hellboy was sort of like that. Watchmen, all of those kinds of things. So we're tomorrow's next big thing today at your comic shop if you want to get on the ride the edge of it. And so the experience that you're only going to get at your local comic shop, that's the opportunity for indie creators to kind of step up on that thing. It's still trying to find its identity. It's floundered a little bit, but I think that's the big opportunity. This is the what's the big indie film festival called? Not Cannes or whatever. I don't know, whatever the big
Con.
Yeah. Whatever the sort of indie film festival, the big one is. That's what Local Comic Shop Day should sort of be for comic creators. That's the day when you guys go en masse out at your shop and you're pitching to. You're only going to get this. You're going to meet people passionate about their things. You're going to meet the artists. You're going to, just share the joy of comics at that time. And so I think that's where indie creators and stuff can shine on those kinds of things.
Yeah. So we do Local Comic Shop Day at the local shop, and we did New Comic Book Day. And of course there were more people at New Comic Book Day because people
Free Comic Book Day.
Free Comic Book Day.
Yeah.
People were coming in didn't even know it was Local Comic Shop Day. I think that's an advertising issue.
Oh yeah, that we're definitely trying to work on, but that's also one of those things where, as a community, we could try to kind of grow it. And you need to find retailers who are into. And part of the problem with some comic retailers is just staffing.
Yes.
There are still a lot of comic shops, and no shade or anything thrown on them, but if you don't have staff, if you only are a 1 or 2 person operation, it can be very difficult for you to do events or kind of sustain this sort of stuff. We have that, we've been around for all these years, and we have some of that to a degree because I'm old and tired, and I don't want to be here at midnight doing some kind of event or something, you know. I want to be home, putting my Crocs in the freezer and putting them on and just sort of relaxing sometimes. So it can make it difficult to get to do the kind of events that you want to do. When you talk to Shannon and Matt from Bat City, they are young, have the fire in their souls or whatever like that, and they are bam, bam, bam. They're knocking out events, of which I am incredibly envious of. And we were able to do that 20 years ago before I had kids. You know? So on both sides, it sort of needs to be trying to make it as easy as possible.
Right.
You know? Like
I mean, I think that where that lands kind of in is in like the creators' hands also helping with marketing advertising. We do a lot of marketing advertising for a lot of the shops here. We do marketing advertising for the shops in California. We do for Florida. We do a lot of marketing advertising for a lot of shops. Like if they're carrying our stuff, we are seriously pushing people to go to these shops and get our stuff from there. Like, why buy it from me and I have to ship it to you when you just go to your local store? They've got it. Go get it from them. So
and that's fantastic and greatly appreciated. And the downside for you, I assume, as creators, is anybody who gets into the comic creating business does it because they have a story they want to tell and they have a passion for it and they're looking forward to drawing and telling these stories. As indie creators, what percentage of your workload is actually doing the creating and the fun part?
It's gotten less, like since the Comicsburg thing has become a thing, it's gotten, for me, less and less, because I took on most of the publishing duties of the company. So that's publishing duties of everyone else's book. That's publishing duties of my book. That's marketing, everything, that like calling the stores, emailing the stores, et cetera, et cetera. I get help with that, but yeah. It was
becomes like 10% the fun part, 90% the pushing the rock up the hill. Right.
But the good news is that I had built up so much stuff over time that I can do that and take a little break from it and then come back to it.
Right. You've built the mechanisms and the structures and made the routine. So there's not a lot of tasks that you can just go ting, 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 you know, and as retailers, I know that I have problems with that. One of our operating mantras is make the routine, but we don't do that as well as we want to sometimes.
Yeah. And it's also part of that. So I have a plan, but what was it? Mike Tyson always said that everyone has a plan until you get punched in the mouth. Then
exactly.
Out the window then, and you're like scrambling to figure out, well, what am I even doing today?
I would, if I've had a little bit of a staff change. My manager of 20 some odd years has moved out to California. He's still my man in the chair and he works virtually most of the time anyway, and is a godsend. And then I had another one who moved to Canada. So I've got sort of new staff, and it is very difficult to hand tasks off and teach them things, because comic retailing is less about do this. It's like, okay, I have 300 different ways that I need to fight a fire. So when something starts, is it this? Is it this? Is it this? Is it this? And so it's sort of more like improvisational every day, is to try to fix things. And I imagine, you guys have some of those same problems as well. COVID certainly made us figure out how to improvise. Okay, well, Twitter's gone crazy, so we had a thing built up there. Now what do we jump over here to Blue Sky? Do we do this? Do we do that? Hey, our printer has gone belly up, or there's been a problem with this, and so you spend so much time doing the other things, or as I call you're full of fire and vinegar and you're ready to do the thing, and then you keep getting slapped with the cold fish of the mundane. And by the time you're done dealing with that, you've forgotten, you've lost all your momentum.
Right.
And so the thing that we can try to do for each other and everybody in this industry is the greatest gift we can give each other is time. So if, as indie creators, and I like that you guys have kind of a collective of that, and I think that there's great strength in numbers in that. Is if you can sort of make a kit for the retailers and says, hey, we want to do an event. at your shop. We've got this whole thing set up. You can see how it's going over here. Hardly any hassle for you, whatever like that. Zenoscope does some things like that where they'll do like sort of a live stream sort of thing, and they'll have some sales and they'll split the money with the retailer or do stuff, which was great during the pandemic. And it's basically we have to don't do anything other than just say, yeah, okay, that sounds great, And so I know that's a lot of work for you, but the more that you get that set up as a package, the easier it is to do. It's sort of easier to mass produce kind of as you go along. It's like writing press releases. The only reason press releases work is because whoever's got to fill those inches at the newspaper is glad to have anything he doesn't have to retype. He can just copy and paste in there and change, 3 words. You've made their job easier. That's why you got the space that time. Now we have to try to figure out as retailers how we make that, can do that for you. And a lot of time it is trying to get through the barrier of you come out. Let's see, a lot of times, anytime anybody comes up and asks you something, your first thought is, what now? Right? What's this, and trying to get past that shield that just says, no matter what you're going to ask me, it's going to be a hassle for me. It's going to take time. Even just thinking about it right now is going to take me a little bit of time. And so trying to get past that initially, that we all just need to take a breath whenever anybody asks us something, to take a moment and go, all right, I don't need to anticipate. Let's just be in the moment here. What are you asking? Not trying to live in the future that hasn't been written yet. Okay. Wow, that got deep and pretty fast. I think I stepped on that one.
It's okay.
Well, I mean, we've come up on our hour, but Joe, I do have one last question for you. When it comes down to independent creators getting into shops, do you think it's easier for them to? Because look, there was a moment in time, right, where things like Cerebus Bone and
Stranger in
Paradise, right? You had all of these independent creators with their own companies as individual things. Is it better for a creator to go that route to get your attention, or is it better for them to maybe be with like a Scout or a Vault or an Antarctic Press or one of those companies? Like, which one do you find more beneficial?
I wouldn't advocate being with Scout at the moment. For reasons.
I know those guys.
But I do think that does give a little bit of it sort of addresses a little bit of the issue of that there's going to be another issue, that there will literally be another issue, the number 3 situation, except with, the company we just mentioned at the moment. But there's a greater odds that if you are with one of those, the retailer will expect that there will be a subsequent issue sometime in the near future. It does make ordering easier. It does, I would think, take a little bit of some of the publisher responsibilities off of you. And there's already an established a bit of real estate within the sort of comic buying biome. Like I recognize all of those names, and I will be ordering through them, and I know who I'm going to order them from, and I can, I already have procedures for that. I don't have to take an extra step to contact the creator directly. It is nice that if they are with one of those things, usually you can contact the direct creator, and those companies are much more willing to work with you if you wanted to do some kind of event, that they can do things that the big guys can't do. They're more nimble and more receptive to ideas like that. So I would not say that is a bad thing. And it probably would make your life a little bit easier, and it does make our life a little bit easier. But then again, that's also somebody else taking another chunk of your pie. So,
Yeah.
Get your hands off my pie.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't even get a full apple out of this pie. I didn't even get a full slice.
All right. Real quick, I'm going to share out Marvin's campaign. Marvin, you want to talk on this real quick? Do they still have an opportunity to buy this?
Yeah, so we funded on September 30th, but it is now in late funding. So if there's anything else that anybody else still wants out there, you can still pledge for it. So now it's kind of like a store. So it's not a wait until 20, 30 days. As soon as you pledge, now it's going to take your cash like it does on Indiegogo.
Cool.
And it was nice that I saw that I can order volume 1 off of this as well while doing the Kickstarter for 2.
Yeah, so that was one of the big things is that I wanted to make sure that, and actually it was a suggestion from Tom Hutchinson, who does Critter. Make sure that people know Volume 1's there, because I didn't. It was there, but I didn't have it in the title. So he said, make sure you add it on there. So I make sure that it's on there so people know that they're not coming in like Volume 2. I didn't. Where's Volume 1?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. It's always important to put volume, 1 through 2. This is my campaign currently running, another 7 days. So yeah, Oswald's finally in color. So this is cool. This is issues 1 through 6 of Passing Queens and Making Homes, and there you go. So go check it out. The links are in the show notes.
It's beautiful art in all of those. That's one of the other things. A lot of times we get solicitations and we'll send something and we're like, I know that this is a passion project for you, but you're not quite there, unfortunately.
Yeah. That is definitely one of the things that, I started self-publishing in '92, and I got lucky. When I was a kid, I hooked up with a bunch of comic artists who were in the School of Visual Arts. They were taking classes from like Dick Giordano and Will Eisner and stuff. So it was like, like this book was my last campaign. And, this was illustrated by, I think Matt was 19 at the time. So, we were all kids. And, so ever since then, I've been trying to, maintain that level of, that level of quality. So, all right, Marvin.
Yes, sir.
It's that time. Joe, please let everybody know where they can find you and your store.
We're on most of the social medias at Captain Blue Hen. That's blue is in the color and hen is in the chicken, and it's all pronounced. So, and we're at CaptainBlueHen.com. You can find Comics Pro stores at comicspro.org. They have a little map thing there, a little finder, so you can find stores in different states. If you wanted to, if you are a creator and you want to reach out to one of those stores to see about doing something, I highly recommend it. You can, I think you can email through there, and I'll probably get a hold of it at some point if necessary. But try to establish relationships with your local comic shops. But you guys are the ones who are going to They're going to sell the stuff the best, and God bless you for doing it, man. There's some great stuff out there. It's an uphill battle to get it in the stores, right. And but I'm glad you guys are out there doing it, because unfortunately, the other problem you guys always run into is when you do get something good and you get that great artist, he's going to get scooped up right away. You end up becoming the farm team for the big two. Everything that I liked in Image, all the Jay Farber books, we would have for like Dynamo 5, every artist he got on there got scooped up by Marvel like really, really quick, and you can't continue to do the book, and you're like, oh man, damn it. So
that definitely happens.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, Marvin.
Yes, sir. So Marvin Wynn, you can find me at The Edge Comic across the interwebs, comicsburg.com and theedgecomic.com.
All right, cool. And I'm JD Calderon. You can find me on theoswaldchronicles.com, talltalesonline.com, Dream River Press, and most importantly, currently on Kickstarter. And just don't forget, everybody, please check out the show notes. Click those links. All of those links go to various websites, where they go to my Kickstarter, Marvin's Kickstarter, or Joe's store, or his Facebook website. So please go check out those links. Check out those books, and just remember, buy more books, especially ours. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good night.
Good night.
Thanks, guys.